Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to A.W. Mumford Fieldhouse on the third floor in the club suites. Glad to have you here. Really briefly, just to share with you the most recent details that we have, and then I will answer any questions that you have. We're pleased to announce that Southern University has reached an agreement in principle with head football coach Dawson Odums to offer a contract extension of the current contract, adding 3 additional years to that contract at the salary of a base salary of $175,000, which will extend him through the 2017 season. Obviously, the successes we had this year were demonstrable, notable, and meritorious, and this contract is reflective of the great work that Coach Odums and his staff have done, not only in terms of the competitive success that we've had on the field of play, but also, and I think more importantly, to the continued transformation of the young men on this team, the high character, the expectations of discipline, the performance, the attendant performance that these student athletes are showing in the classroom and as citizens, and the very high expectations that Coach Odums has set in all of those areas is certainly more important to me as an athletic director, and equally important to me as wins and losses on the field. So for all those reasons and more, not to mention the role that he's played as an ambassador of this institution, as we continue to try to grow and elevate the university's brand, this contract is in response to all of those factors. So pleased to offer the extension. I know Coach Odums is excited to continue working on the recruiting class for 2014. They've been diligently making home visits and doing some follow-ups with some recruits for next year. And we're glad, I'm glad personally on his behalf that he can now transition into that without the distractions of a contract negotiation. So very excited to offer that contract to him, and we will seek board approval at the January meeting. So pending board approval, we've got our coach, and we can celebrate and breathe easily. At this time, I'll address any questions.
I guess when a coach has success like this, is it in the back of your mind that this kind of thing could happen, or that you have to go through this process?
It's not in the back of your mind; it's in the front of your mind. It's something that across the board, whether you're talking about your Olympic sports or your revenue-generating sports, anytime a coach has success, you can guarantee that your fans are not the only people noticing it. So with the kind of stage that Southern University plays on, with having a national stage through playing games on ESPN and the Bayou Classic, the SWAC Championship, and the following that black college football has across the nation, it came as no surprise to me. And there was strategizing even throughout the season. We didn't just start thinking about what we might need to do to ensure that we can enlist Coach Odums' services in the long term. We didn't just start thinking about that on the drive home from Houston. It was something that was in the works for quite some time.
Speaking with Chancellor Lawrence, I think last week, he said he'd heard a little bit from alumni nationwide, and he had felt a little pressure, heard a lot of feedback on how badly people wanted Odums to stay.
I have, but I can tell you that can't ever be the driving force behind something like this. The arms race, as it's called in college athletics, has led, in the past, particularly in the past decade or so, to some rash and often damaging decisions, particularly tied to head coaches' salaries and salary pools for football and investments in infrastructure. So there's a level of reason that has to be employed where you take into consideration all factors. What factors are going to keep that particular head coach feeling confident? What will keep that staff in place, because any good head coach will acknowledge the importance of their staff. What improvements to infrastructure and facilities need to be done, and that needs to be done with a mindfulness towards the entire operating budget of the department, because we have 14 other sports, 10 other head coaches, and roughly 250 other student athletes that are equally important to us.
Speaking of the staff, I know Coach Odums, one of the things he emphasizes wanting support for his staff. As far as you know, what kind of I guess, additional support did you provide them?
Well, we're going to work through the budget process to continue to identify ways to, and this isn't just for the football staff. This is trying to find for the department heads that I have that work very hard, for assistant coaches and head coaches across the board. As our budget continues to grow, as our revenues continue to grow, we've seen roughly a 20% or 20+% growth in revenues in just the past 2 years. As we continue to grow those revenues responsibly, I will always have a mindfulness towards trying to find, even if it's just cost of living increases in some instances for all staff members. So I know how important this staff was. I saw the changes in this team that some of the staff additions were able to facilitate this year. And so I know that they are equally important, and I will work very closely with Coach Odums, with the permission of my budget manager, who is taking a well-deserved break right now and welcoming in a new addition to her family. But we'll work very closely on our budget process in the spring to do everything that we can to keep his staff intact.
What's his biggest concern in terms of improvements? Was he outspoken about that to you?
No, and the thing about Coach Odums and my working relationship, we've got a very good working relationship in terms of if there's a need there, I don't have to find out about it on the street. I don't have to find out about it backhanded. He'll walk down the hall to my office. He'll pick up the phone and call me. He'll let me know what he needs. And if I'm in a position to provide it, we provide it. And so the concerns that he has are the concerns that any coach who has had recent success will have. You know, when you're the champion, the target is painted bigger on your back. And Southern has really never had to worry about that target being painted on their back. We tend to think that we get the best out of everybody no matter what, but especially so when you're the champion. So it's harder to defend a championship than it is to win one. And so we need to not rest on our laurels. If everything that we did this year is exactly the same next year, same promotions, same budget, same salaries, same everything, you can guarantee that everything else around you will change, including the results. So we need to continue to grow. We need to do everything we can to make improvements to facilities. We need to do everything that we can to make Southern University athletics the most attractive option for future prospects. And we need to do everything that we can for the student athletes who are returning as defending champions next year to feel inspired and motivated to go after another championship in 2014.
Are there specific elements in the deal that address support in terms of facilities or anything else?
We're taking that one step at a time. You know, the contract that we have, that we will put in front of the board, in January, addresses the head coach. So that's step one. Everything else goes through the budgetary process. All of our assistant coaches, as well as the rest of my staff, are at-will employees. So those contracts are negotiated on an annual basis. So the first step is making sure that we've got the head coach. The next step from there is the budget process. So there are some commitments that he has from me, just knowing what we have in the budget and what plans I have in terms of facility enhancements, as well as, you know, having a record in my short time here of trying to identify ways to reward staff, whether that's through additional salary, additional positions to provide more support, or growing operational budgets. I think I've earned from him in the short time that I've been here the confidence to continue moving forward once we get his contract approved.
Are the assistant coaches' contracts due to expire?
Yes, those contracts go from July to June, so that's why we've got additional time. Coach Odums' contract is a February to January contract, so that's the sense of urgency on the extension for him. We have additional time to outline and make changes to the assistant coaches' salaries because we have until the May budget process to do so.
I assume throughout the process, in talking to the chancellor and maybe members of the board, you have a pretty good feel for how they're going to vote. Would you expect an easy approval?
The proper channels for me are to go to the chancellor and from the chancellor to the chair of the athletics committee. I've also had conversations with the chair of the board as well, and she has expressed her support for Coach Odums. From there, I'm relatively hands-off in the process. The job that I have is to bring in the necessary parties and negotiate a contract that's amenable to all those parties. From there, the outreach, if board members have questions for me, my door is always open. I'll always, answer and return their phone calls or emails. But at this point, I've not been apprised of any resistance that would have me concerned at this point about the January board proposal. If I did, then we might not be looking at a January proposal. But all indications at this point are favorable.
Any players contact you in these last few weeks concerned that they'd have to go through another change?
Here's why. The answer is no, and here's why. Every time every time a rumor swirls about a coach, the instinct is to jump to the worst conclusion for a lot of people. And so as soon as another institution expressed interest, I think on the outside, the further you radiate it out from this building, and this our athletic family, there was more and more and more panic. I've had a number of people tell me recently, but you seem exceptionally calm considering everything that's going on. But the calmness emanated from the confidence I had that Coach Odums was going to be our head coach. And so I think if I had that confidence in him, obviously the players are going to have that confidence in him as well because he'd given no indication that he wanted to leave. So, I've had a couple of parents, contact me and congratulate me on the success, thank me for giving Coach Odums the opportunity and express that they, did hope that he would be back, but not the sort of panic-stricken, you've got to do this, it's absolute desperation, or the panic that derives from being truly fearful that he was seeking another opportunity.
The one thing you can't offer is the tie that an alma mater can offer.
Mm-hmm.
Were you ever concerned about Central having that tie, and why do you think ultimately Southern was a better option?
And I mean no disrespect by this, but that is only one tie. There are, for someone, for example, who graduated from a school that doesn't have a football program that aspires to be a football coach, someone could say, but it's their alma mater. Well, what are they going to do? Go back there and be a PE teacher? I mean, and that's not to say that North Carolina Central didn't make him an offer. I don't know. I don't know the details, but I can tell you that there's more to be considered than the tie to your alma mater. Coach Odums has short-term and long-term aspirations as a football coach, and what I offered to him was that whatever those short-term and long-term aspirations are, it was my belief that he could get to those with a better degree of reliability being the head coach at Southern than anywhere else in between now and whatever those eventual goals are. I can't speak for Coach Odums. You'd have to ask him, but I think the fact that we were able to reach this agreement speaks to the fact that he shares in that confidence as well.
He out recruiting now, or was there a knock on his door and get him out here?
He is. I don't have the details on. I know he's out today. Yeah.
Okay.
But I know all the way through yesterday afternoon he was making home visits. So yeah, and all last week as well. So yeah.
Can you give us a figure on the salary he's now getting does not add up to what he earned this year with incentives?
Correct.
Can you give us a value on the entire package if incentives were to be met?
The total incentive package is let's see, just under $50,000, whereas I think last year's total incentives were just under $60,000.
A new dawn in Southern athletics approaches.
One measured by the relentless pursuit of academic excellence and athletic glory.
There's just one thing missing from our Jaguar Jamboree. You.
A Southern rebirth is firmly taking shape on the bluffs of the Mississippi.
But to propel the Jaguar Nation to new heights, we need you.
Because Southern deserves
a nation united.